Welcome to the Flowerlounge, a place for conversations with wildly creative people and a little plant-loving wisdom to help you experience life in full bloom. I'm Katie Hess, flower alchemist and founder of LOTUSWEI, and I believe in a world where we're all living at our personal edge. Welcome to this week's episode of the Flowerlounge. This is an extra special episode. We are launching a new series every month called Moonshine, where we have invited special guest Kristina Wingeier, intuitive astrologer, who we featured on an earlier episode in the Flowerlounge. And during these monthly Moonshine sessions, we'll be discussing the cosmic weather patterns of each lunar cycle. And we'll offer rituals and flowers to support you through it. So I want to welcome Kristina.
Hi, I'm so excited to be back. Thank you for doing this beautiful thing with me.
Yay, the first Moonshine. So
First Moonshine.
I saw some of your notes and it is like super juicy for this lunar cycle. Where do we start?
So maybe I'll just start by talking about the lunar cycle for a minute, just so folks can understand why we're using the lunar cycle as a container for these forecasts. So, I love the moon and I do a lot of lunar astrology. I follow the moon, I follow the lunar cycle, I look at the moon outside. And it's just this pattern of growth and release that happens regularly that you can really tune into in your life. And it's very helpful as kind of like compass points to your life, the lunar cycle. And I look at it like 4 chapters. So there's the new moon chapter, there's the first quarter moon chapter, there's the full moon chapter, and the last quarter moon chapter. And they're each about a week, and they have a certain flavor, an energetic flavor, and then they're unique each time because of whatever's happening with the planets. So that's kind of the framework for where we'll explore and how we'll explore. So I guess we'll start with the new moon, huh?
Yes, and we'll be doing this every new moon. So every month you can come back on new moon and get the latest forecast for that lunar cycle, right?
Yes. So this new moon is on February 15th in the States, which is a Thursday. And we're in eclipse season right now. So eclipse season happens twice a year. And we are in the kind of like the ending part of it. We just had that total full moon lunar eclipse in Leo, which was pretty intense. I know you watched it and were participating with it. Yeah, Katie?
It was beautiful.
So beautiful.
Gorgeous.
But it was super powerful. Like it really brought up a lot of stuff for people, a lot of emotions. A lot of people I know were just really exhausted and kind of a lot of clearing out happening. So with this new moon, as with all new moons, we have this opportunity to kind of seed a new cycle and kind of set these intentions, how we want to move forward. And this new moon is going to be a partial eclipse. So it's going to be a little bit kind of extra special, not like that big eclipse in August, not total solar eclipse, but a partial eclipse. And so it's really an interesting new moon because it's in Aquarius, and new moons are a time of beginning, right? But in the eclipse series, it's on what's called the South Node. So it's really about letting go of mental constructs that keep you from living authentically and really valuing your contribution to kind of like the collective vibration. So we have the sun and the moon in Aquarius, we have Mercury in Aquarius, and we have all this energy of this Aquarius energy, which is very innovative. So we're like being invited into like looking at what has brought up over the last couple of weeks and how we want to kind of repattern our thinking to move forward in a more aligned way.
I love that.
Yeah. So especially with this Mercury being in Aquarius, it's like very innovative thinking, like flashes of insight and perception, because Aquarius is a very visionary sign. It's a air sign called fixed air, and it has these planets that are connected with it, Uranus and Saturn. So it's kind of like this big dreaming and big visioning and disruption of the status quo. But how do you bring it into form, and how can you make it useful? So a lot of very visionary leaders and thought thought leaders, is that what they call them now? Are, you know, this Aquarius kind of energy. And so I'm like really curious about like what kind of elixirs could support this individualized expression and helping people stay connected to authenticity and like their higher self, you know, and kind of like let go of any ideas of like them being different, being a problem. Like we need to be who we are, you know. It's really time to be true to our unique self.
Yeah. So in the flower evolution right now, we're working with the frog orchid elixir, which I mean, that's the one that popped right into my mind because when you talk about having flashes of insight, I think it's rare that those flashes can actually penetrate when we're in very busy doing mode, right? When we're just like RPM super high, those flashes of insight can't come in. So Frog Orchid would help us step back a little bit from the craziness of our life and you know, continue to be fully engaged, but come from more of a being place and be able to carve out more time to just be or to take nature walks so that we can create enough spaciousness in our systems so that those flashes of insight and new visions and new patterns can emerge. And it seems like rather than trying to like intellectually figure out a new way, it would just be like creating a space from which like a completely different framework can emerge. Does that match with what you're saying?
I love that so much because the thing about Aquarius energy, because it is an air sign, is it can get kind of mental. You know, there is like kind of a detachment and a coolness, which is nice after the heat of that Leo full moon. It's nice to have a little bit of coolness, but there is kind of like an, you know, I live with an Aquarius and a very mental and very mind oriented, and we really need to you know, let this place come from what is our heart's value system. Like that is where we need to be. And what you're talking about, making space for that to kind of emerge from that place and come kind of grow up into the brain almost would be, I don't know, I just got that image of it planted and growing up.
Definitely. And if folks don't have access to the frog orchid elixir, if you're not in the flower evolution program, we have another elixir called date flower, literally the flower that grows off of the date tree. And it would be similar in the sense that you would be coming into the middle and not letting yourself go to the extremes. So as you're kind of revising old patterns, you don't have to fully discard something. So like you don't have to say like, well, I have to like not do salsa dancing anymore. I have to do Tai Chi. I'm only going to do that because this one is going to get me further on my path, right? You can incorporate both. Or if there's a person in your life that you think, well, maybe I need to let go of this person, rather than thinking I need to completely eliminate them from my life, black and white, it could be, well, maybe there's like a new way of being, a new formation. So date flower could help us get out of that mental habit of like being really extreme. It has to be this way or this way, and finding new ways to envision our lives.
I love that. Yeah, we live in an extreme culture. So that's really helpful. And hang out with people that you feel really accept you for who you are. Like you really want to be around. This Aquarius energy is also very much about like the tribe that you love and that loves you for you. You know, that is so important to be able to find, even if it's just one person. And if you can't find anybody, then go and be with nature, right? Because nature loves you all the time. But I think that it's really important part of kind of self-love is to see that mirrored in the people that you're hanging out with. And there is that feeling of really being with like-minded and people that you feel supportive, and you can just be your very unique self, because, you know, we all have very special magic in that individuality and in that uniqueness. The things that kind of make us different are really the most precious things, I think.
That makes a lot of sense for this time period.
Yeah. And so that's the new moon. It's you know, it's an eclipse, so it's pretty kind of like intense, just, you know, so you might still be feeling like new moon time. It's the dark of the moon. It's not like there's a lot of light with the moon. So you might, a lot of times around new moons, I don't sleep so well. I feel really tired. And so just really take good care of your body, you know, hot baths and lots of hydration and being in nature as much as possible. And definitely that weekend after that new moon, like the astrology just really supports chilling out, going inward and not like pushing up against things, but really just trying to like rest and like replenish. And, you know, you'll get your energy back, because it's just been a lot of pressure, I think, on people's nervous systems. I think all the time, but recently, you know, just feels like what I'm seeing in people and what I'm noticing is that people feel really pressed and tight, and you need to like relax and chill out. So I think it might be nice to, I don't know, I would just like some kind of ritual with a hot bath and some, you know, essential oils and something delicious to drink with something dropped in there that was supportive of that, like tuning in kind of quality. Sounds really good.
Yeah, actually, it's also the first weekend of the dog year, right? So different.
Oh my God, yeah, totally.
So this new moon is the first day of the Chinese New Year, the dog year.
So can you share a little bit about the Earth Dog? Do you know? Me neither. Oh, but it's.
I mean, dog is typically, I mean, we're moving out of rooster, phoenix, fiery. Dog is more like, I mean, and I'm in no way an expert, but just, you know, street value here. Dogs are really loyal. You know, just, I mean, what you think of when you think of a dog.
Totally. And it's an earth dog too. So grounding after all that fire energy, like really kind of loyal. And I'm trying to think of my dog, a companion, faithful, steady. And also dogs that's like they're a pack. It's kind of like that Aquarian thing. They need to find their tribe, you know, they don't live by themselves. They're not like cats. A lot of cats are more solitary, but dogs need community. And that's Aquarius, new moon in Aquarius. You need to find your community. Yeah. Love it. So, yeah, I really think that the more people can rest this new moon, or just follow your energy, but just don't push up against it. If you're feeling tired, like give yourself the space to just, you know, like really still kind of be releasing and letting things go. And you can even set an intention for letting go of, you know, making space for new inspiration to emerge, and just kind of letting go of things that aren't just really like lighting you up. Like more we like really are living in and doing the things that are lighting us up, then the better place the world's going to be, right? There's a really cool thing happening that weekend. A couple of things is that there's an aspect between Mercury and the sun that's called a cazimi. Isn't that a cool word?
It's a really cool word.
I love that word. It's just so like, it's like a Shazam. It's a cazimi.
What is a cazimi?
A cazimi is this aspect when the sun, it's when any planet makes an exact conjunction with the sun, like exactly. And so when planets come up with the sun, they kind of get lost in the brightness of the sun. You know, you can't see them in the sky. And in astrology, they don't have as much of their power sometimes because they're so hidden by the light of the sun. But there's this one kind of moment when they're exactly conjunct that it's like a power surge from the sun gives all of this energy to the planet. It's like the sun's full attention. It's said that the planet has the ear of the king. And so with Mercury cazimi, there really is this ability for that, if we can make the space for that like insight to just arrive. It's almost like it was already there, but you've just made space for it just to drop into your system. It's happening on Saturday the 17th. So that's pretty cool. Yeah, I love the cazimi. And then, you know, we're starting out the lunar cycle with this fixed air energy, but very quickly we're going to be shifting into this whole Pisces vibe. And I know you're a Pisces, so I know you know the Pisces vibe. I'm a moon in Pisces. So Venus has already moved into Pisces. She moved in on February 10th before this lunar cycle. But Mercury is moving in on Saturday, the 17th. And then the sun moves into Pisces on the 18th. So very quickly we go from this air kind of mental, you know, thought place to mutable water. Pisces energy is very much about deep compassion. And I think one of the things that I have to learn in my compassion ways is like the truth of idiot compassion. Do you guys, you know, work with that concept of idiot compassion? Mm-hmm. Tell me what you.
Yes. Well, I mean, idiot compassion. So that would be like being so nice and so loving, and then not taking care of yourself, or not setting limits or boundaries, or giving so much to someone that they're kind of taking advantage of you, or there's a lack of clarity, or you're enabling something.
Yeah. And so I think that that's like a lesson in compassion, is learning how to have boundaries around that, and really how to really take care of yourself, and self-compassion, and not martyrdom, because I think that martyrdom can kind of be a flip side of compassion, or like a shadow side of it. And with all the Pisces energy, you know, that is really very much, space gets very open, very fluid, very permeable. And so that can be confusing for people, especially sensitive people or people that are more empathic. And really, Pisces energy can be a little, you start to feel everything. And if you don't know how to differentiate between yourself and somebody else's energy, then that can be confusing. So what about a ritual or something to help people, you know, keep an open heart, and not be so rigid in fear and constriction, but to have a protection around them that allows them to live from an open heart? And does that make sense? Like what I'm kind of feeling into?
Yeah, I mean, it feels like a time for really turning that compassion toward oneself, right? So
Mm-hmm.
instead of like overly accommodating other people, really just like bathing in your own self-compassion. um, which could look like, for me, it always looks like spending time in nature, just like taking that extra little, 10 minutes and really just like listening to the birds
Mm-hmm.
and looking at the way the breeze moves through the trees and recognizing that I'm a part of that kind of spaciousness comes in and that interconnectedness comes in. I mean, for me, that's like one of the most powerful rituals for inducing this state of compassion.
Mm, I love that. I'm with you. Nature is the greatest healer for me as well. And you know, with all this Pisces energy, like being around water is nice, because you know, moving water, not a stagnant lake. That would not be. I mean, not that all lakes are stagnant, but nothing that's kind of stuck. But a river or the ocean or even a fountain, something where the water is moving and flowing, and to help cleanse and purify, but also just to help you ride those waves of emotion that can come up when there's so much Pisces energy, you know.
Mm.
Venus will be in Pisces, as I said, and that is like so nice. Like Venus is really such a loving presence in Pisces. And so something that I do, and it may sound a little funny, but like sometimes if I'm feeling like that, I do that nature thing as well. But sometimes I just imagine that I'm sitting in the lap of this like very big, beautiful goddess, you know, that's just like holding my energy, or I give myself to the goddess or to that divine feminine energy, because it's very nurturing and very receptive. And that's like nature too. But with Venus being in Pisces, like if you're feeling heartache or feeling confused or lost, like really just laying down at the feet of the divine feminine and that receptive, loving quality, I think can be really supportive if that's resonant.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, or taking baths every day and just like soaking in whatever are those, flowers or scents or elixirs that support you and make you feel nurtured and loved. Rose is a really good flower for that.
Yeah, so that's the new moon. That's the energy, kind of like that's the way the lunar cycle's starting out and shifting into Pisces. And then
So,
the next, yeah,
Kristina, would you say that's the first chapter
I would say
of the
that's the
cycle?
first chapter. That's
Okay.
the new moon, and then moving into Pisces energy from that new moon. And so with the lunar cycle, you know, some cultures didn't even consider the moon to be new until they could actually see the crescent moon in the sky. So what I've noticed myself after years of lunar living is that there's something really special and magical to me about the first crescent moon that I see. Like whether it's on the first, second or third night of the lunar cycle, it's just that renewed hope, and that crescent that's lit up there in the sky. That's a ritual that I connect with as much as I can. And I encourage people to go out and look like on the second or third night of the lunar cycle in the western sky at sunset and see if you can see the crescent moon. It's just stunning, and it feels so uplifting and magical to me. So that is something that I would say, do it. So the second chapter would be the quarter moon, the first quarter moon. And that's when you look at the moon looks like it's half light and half dark. And so in the beginning of the second chapter of the lunar cycle, as we're calling it, is the waxing quarter moon. So the moon is building up her light body. She's getting bigger and brighter every day. And the quarter moons are half light and half dark. So there's this it's kind of like equinox energy, right? There's a balance, but you have to move. Like you can't stay stuck in that position. And a lot of times for the first quarter moon, what you'll need to do is take some kind of action at a place where maybe you get stuck a lot. So with this first quarter moon, it's on Friday the 23rd, is in the sign of Gemini. And that's another air sign. But Gemini energy is really playful and curious. So I would say that if you're finding yourself kind of running up against an old problem or feeling frustrated about not being able to like get something done or to try to like look for a new solution in a playful and curious way and try to lighten your heart a little bit and think about coyote medicine and, just that not taking things so seriously can really help you see things in a new way.
Good night to go dancing.
Yes. Good night to go dancing. Move your body. Definitely. That's funny because when do you do salsa dancing?
I do.
Do you do a lot with your arms?
Mm-hmm.
Because that's Gemini rules the arms and the nervous system and like the hands. And so I could just see like a lot of movement of this part of your body could really help activate that energy. So what do you think about elixirs or mists or something to support seeing something in a new way? Being playful and curious.
Yeah, I mean, if you have an inspired action mist on hand, I would, go for that on Friday to just sort of give you a little push, give you a little bump into innovative thinking outside the box. Yeah.
Awesome. That smells really good. I like that one. Well, what doesn't smell good from LOTUSWEI, really? It all smells good. So let's see, that's Friday the 23rd. And then, there's something that I want to bring to our attention on Tuesday the 27th, because what's going to happen is the moon's going to be in Leo, and the moon is going to hit that point where the eclipse happened. And I'm going to just notice, because that eclipse, that total lunar eclipse, the blood moon.
The one in January?
Yeah. Like that was very powerful. Like it really like made an impact in that place in the zodiac. And so I've decided in my own tracking that I'm going to start paying attention to that each month and see kind of how I'm feeling, the places that I was working on or considering around that eclipse in my own life, how I am relating to those parts of myself, and things like that. I'm going to note that. So I'm going to share it with everybody else because I think that it's an interesting thing to notice. So it might be a nice time to just, again, like, get into your heart space, because Leo energy is so much about living from the heart and the courage to like live from your heart and just, the spine and the heart. And so any kind of maybe rose on your heart or like meditations, breathing in your heart, like things like that, just I think could be really supportive on that day, especially if you're feeling any tension or irritability or even sad, just could be a really nice thing to do. What else is going on? So that's on Tuesday the 27th. And then there's a couple of like tense aspects in the weather patterns this week as we move toward the full moon. And what you might notice, I don't know if you notice this, Katie, but do you notice that things get more intense, maybe a little like right before the full moon and the full moon? Like, I know you're pretty chill. You have a lot of practices and things to support you in, being very grounded in that. But like, do you notice like around you that people are getting a little more ramped up or anything like that?
Yeah, definitely. Like the first 3-4 days before the full moon everything seems to sort of get stirred up.
Yeah. So I would say that just being aware of communication and like verbal kind of conflicts and power plays would be a really smart thing to be doing as we're kind of getting toward the full moon. There's some aspects. I won't use all the astral language because I don't want to confuse people, but just there's some tensions in like how we take action and how we communicate. And as we get to the full moon, tempers can get shorter. People can be getting less sleep and feeling irritated and they don't know why. And so the more that you can just, walk away from a conflict or take space to get really clear about what you need to say and then come back rather than kind of getting involved in these verbal tug of wars, what could be really helpful and just, keeping things on the chill.
Okay. And then when is a full moon?
It's on March 1st. It's such a nice full moon. The sun will be in Pisces and the moon will be in Virgo for the full moon. It's on March 1st. And the Pisces energy with that sun, the sun is going to be very close to the planet Neptune, which can be a very kind of dreamy, kind of mystical vibe. So that's pretty cool. There's also a really beautiful trine of energy flowing between what are called the benefics. Jupiter and Venus are in a really beautiful aspect. So it's a very kind of like renewal and hope and optimism kind of full moon. So Virgo energy it's earth energy, but it's very much about assimilation and kind of refinement and purification and healing. It's a very, very powerful healing moon, it looks like to me. Yeah, Venus and Mercury are going to be conjunct. So loving words will be coming out of our mouths. We'll be writing poetry because of the Neptune sun, and, listen to music, get dreamy, really kind of ground in and allow yourself to just vision into and dream into the abundance that is all around us and the love and the compassion that is available at any moment. One thing to remember with the Virgo moon is that your body is the sacred container for your spiritual expression. Pisces is such a like spiritual, like out there kind of energy, and Virgo can be really tight and kind of like, we have to get things into order, but it's really about like loving your body like a temple and taking good care, like eating well and resting and moving your body so that you can actually continue to like expand your spiritual expression. And does that make sense?
I love that.
Yeah. So it's a really beautiful full moon. And you had talked earlier before we started recording about some kind of bath ritual.
Yeah. Yeah. Because Pisces is all about water. And so that weekend of the March 2nd and 3rd and 4th, it seems like a really great ritual to do a bath with something like wild abundance to really, just like soak in the gratitude of everything about life that's right and beautiful, and soak in the abundance of your life.
I love that. That weekend, every year, the sun makes a conjunction with Neptune just one time a year because the way things are. And so you might just get like, again, like super creative or mystical. Like it's very much supportive of that on the higher vibration levels. The thing to avoid is kind of like delusions and rose-colored glasses that refuse to see the truth, because there can be Neptune. Neptune is connected to the water, kind of like Pisces. And one of the things that I like to think about with Neptune is that at the ocean, when it's a clear day and you can see everything, you feel so inspired and, just everything is right and you feel connected. But when the fog is out or the mist is up, it's confusing. You don't know where you're going. It feels very heavy and oppressive. So that, Neptune energy can go either way, depending on your headspace and what you're doing in your life. So again, with all the Pisces energy, a lot of feelings come up. And as a culture, I don't think that people really are very adept at handling feelings and the nuances of feelings. It really freaks people out to have feelings, it seems like. So really taking care of your boundaries, so that you can feel what you need to feel.
Sounds like a great weekend to do some creative writing too. You could just create, write. Or you could bake, or you could make something.
Oh, yeah.
And then see where that leads.
Sounds like fun. I think that baking sounds good. I like to make chocolate. There's some really simple recipes for making chocolate, like coconut oil, cacao, maple syrup.
Ooh, yum. That's like a sauce, right?
And then I actually had these little heart molds, and then I pour them in there and put them in the freezer, and they're just like these tiny little chocolates, and they're so good. They're so simple. So something simple. It doesn't have to be complex. It doesn't have to be ganache.
Oh my God, ganache. You know how to make the easiest ganache?
No.
So simple.
Tell
Okay,
me
so
how.
get a get a can of like organic coconut cream or coconut milk.
Uh-huh.
Put it in a little glass Tupperware. Actually, no, heat it first. Heat up that milk, the coconut milk, put it in a little Tupperware, and then put in little chopped up pieces of chocolate. And then you'll stir it all together and then put that in the fridge. And then
Ooh,
you've
that's
got
it?
easy ganache. And if you want to add like rose essential oil or lavender petal powder or, you know, any other sort of flavoring or herbs or superfoods, you can do that as well.
Or LOTUSWEI elixirs.
Oh, yum. Yes.
Yeah, my little hearts, I put peppermint oil in them. So they're like little peppermint.
Yum.
Yeah, but that ganache one's really good. So, make something delicious this weekend because, there's some inspiration for you right now. Ganache.
Yeah. First weekend of March. Make yummy things.
Make
Eat
yummy
chocolate.
things.
Take baths.
Sounds good, right? And dream and vision. Yeah, that Neptune energy, definitely creativity, listening to music. If you're a musician, like playing music, writing poetry or reading poetry, or even watching movies, like just allow yourself to dream and vision and not everybody considers themselves creative, but I think that there's just creativity doesn't have to be like you have to make something. Okay, this is a random tangent, but like with creativity, I think it's important. My mom, all growing up, she told me that she wasn't creative. That was like her motto. It was like, I'm not creative. I don't, because she couldn't sew or she couldn't paint a picture, but she was honestly like the most creative person I knew in the way that she lived her life. She's still alive. Why am I talking about her like she's dead? But, so like there's a million ways to be creative and play with that this weekend. That'll be fun.
Okay, so super creative month of March, and then we move into what happens that week, the first week in March.
Well, Mercury is changing signs from Pisces into Aries, and Mercury is going to actually be going retrograde in March in Aries. So, and Venus is going to move into Aries. So there's all this going to be shift of some of the personal planets, all the personal planets, Mercury, Venus, and Mars will all be in fire signs by the first week of March. So there's a lot of shift of that Pisces, like open-hearted energy, to Aries, fire, just like fire starter kind of action energy, So Mercury will go into its retrograde shadow that week. And the retrograde doesn't start until the 22nd of March, but for people who are like really Mercury sensitive, you might start to notice, and maybe not, but some people will. Jupiter is stationing retrograde that week. So up until now, since the very beginning of the year, all the planets have been direct. And Jupiter is going to be the first planet to go retrograde. Jupiter is going to be retrograde from March 8th to July 10th, farther out in the solar system. So the retrograde is longer. And Jupiter's in Scorpio. Jupiter is really about expansion. Like Jupiter likes to make everything bigger and make things grow. So when Jupiter goes retrograde, it's a really great time to turn that growth inward and to like really tune into your own inner journey, your own depths. And some people might feel like where an area was growing very quickly, that it doesn't feel like it's going so quickly anymore, or that you have to kind of go back over the same territory, or you might have to review something that you thought was locked in. That's really normal for a retrograde, but it's really, with Jupiter being in Scorpio in retrograde, really an opportunity for some deep dives into your own inner terrain and really exploring and getting into some of the stuff that you may have be hidden away there in those scorpionic realms. Yeah, so that is our first retrograde. And then the third quarter moon in Sagittarius is on Friday the 9th. So that's our our fourth chapter of the lunar cycle. And this again is when the moon is half light and half dark, but the moon is going from fullness into darkness. So it's a time of releasing. And so it is a really great time in the lunar cycle to actually do things like projects of like clearing out stuff, It's a great time to like clear out a drawer, or, go through the garage, or take things off of go through your email and delete emails, like just like really clearing out and making space for new things to come in. It's a really great time of the lunar cycle to do that. Sagittarius is a fire sign. And one thing that I was thinking about with this third quarter moon in Sagittarius is really just letting go of any kind of self-righteousness. Because there's sometimes Sag energy can really be about like the truth, finding the truth. And I think that's a really unique experience.
You mean like feeling like we're right about something?
Yeah. And not having room for other people's, like too idealistic and too self-righteous and just kind of overzealous about ideals or philosophies. And so really, just making space for other types of opinions and kind of looking at places where you might be a little self-righteous or a little rigid, and like maybe inviting in some release around some of that. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
What kind of elixirs or what supports us in opening up and
yeah, I would say lilac. Lilac is all about flexibility and letting go of control, letting go of being attached to outcome or things being a certain way. It helps us be more loose and open and accepting, and really accept the impermanent qualities of life, right? When we remember that life is so short, it's like, you're right. It's like, it's not so important to be right. It's just more important to be happy.
Yeah. So take your lilac and clean out your garage.
Sounds like a plan for March 9th.
Just that's up, but anytime during the last week of the lunar cycle, and you might start to notice your energy starting to wind down. Just not have as much energy, wanting to sleep more, wanting to just feel a little bit like, just taking a little more time to get things done or things like that. There's a cool aspect on Sunday the 11th where we're being really invited into like breaking out of our comfort zones. And what I thought was really interesting is that it's also daylight savings time, which kind of puts everybody off kilter. And so we're kind of being thrown out of our comfort zones by this like artificial time construct. And so, just noticing if you're feeling a little off and a little out of your comfort zone, and then how can you reframe that into, a new point of view, like getting a little out of your comfort zone is where growth happens, right? Like if we're always in our comfort zones, then we're kind of a little stagnant, a little stuck. And so, what can it be like to try something new? Have a new relationship to daylight savings, which is hard if you have kids. It really screws you up. So, that's kind of like the main things I wanted to share about. Really, for folks who have the copies of their natal charts, just really noticing how the moon moves through all those places. So the moon moves through the entire zodiac over the course of the lunar cycle. And that's why our feelings can change so much, is because the moon is moving around and activating different parts of our charts and different signs, different planets. So it's really personal to everybody how these cosmic weather patterns kind of arrive, and if it's even a bumpy ride or if you sleep through the turbulence, it's really, really just dependent on you. It's not fated, shall we say, but there are definitely energetic patterns that sometimes can be useful and helpful to understand that if you're feeling like you're the only one that's feeling a certain way, and then you realize that, oh no, there's actually a reason, or some other thing that's kind of supporting that the way I'm feeling, then you don't feel so alone or so kind of crazy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that too, that we're coming up with so many rituals and flowers and things to eat and make, because I just sort of like, you're aligning with nature in your practices and in what you're doing in your downtime. And so I think what we should do is we'll make available on the website, on the Flowerlounge podcast page, some notes for this call that'll have the dates and just, bullet point out some of the things that we talked about today. So you can calendar in your bath time and your making chocolate time and nature time.
Absolutely. And go look at the moon, please. Like, it's not just on, like, go out and look at her and watch that beautiful transformation and watch how she changes position in the sky and how her shape changes. And it's such a beautiful ritual in and of itself, just really connecting with that physical object that's in the sky and developing your own relationship with her rhythms and with her growth and release every month. I just find it so rewarding. It's part of my practice is definitely looking at the moon and being in the moonlight. And
it's nice to think of the lunar cycle and astrology as a mindful awareness practice rather than, something that's like, ooh, this is like fated or destined to happen, and it could be uncomfortable, or, worrying and projecting about it instead of that habit going more into just like, how do I feel right now? And how do I feel right now? And how is that changing and shifting? And how connected we all are to the cosmos and to the earth and to the planets. And like you said, really just using that as a practice of observation and tuning in with yourself.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's a beautiful tool. Mindful awareness. I love that.
Thank you so much, Kristina, for being with us. Really excited for this new Moonshine series. And Kristina is gracious enough to come back every month for a new moonshine every new moon. So looking forward to next lunar cycle. Thank you so much for being here, Kristina.
Thank you, Katie.
Thank you so much for listening to the Flower Lounge. I'm Katie Hess, and we'll be releasing a new podcast every Wednesday. If you like what you heard, or you know someone who might be touched by our conversation, share it with them. And don't forget to subscribe. To find out what your favorite flowers mean about you, take the quiz at LOTUSWEI.com.